Hey everyone, this is BenSan. Thanks very much for joining me. So on my last video, just like a brief introduction to my channel and things like that. Hoping on this video we would be able to go into a bit more detail about my current situation and my experience of coming to Japan during COVID-19 and what that's been like in terms of quarantine, the logistics, the paperwork, and the process in total. A little bit about me. I used to live in Japan a few years ago. I was an English teacher teaching adults and children for about 3 years, living in Kansai, in Osaka and Kobe. And as you can see, I had a really good time and loved the culture, loved the people, loved the cities, everything about it. Food, of course. I wanted to really understand about how to be a good teacher and what it takes to be a teacher for children and for them to listen and learn and all those sorts of things. So my sister is a teacher and she recommended that I really do a PGCE and really undertake the formal training and get the qualifications and knowledge that are required to become a teacher. I did that. I returned home for a few years. I got a bit of experience as a teaching assistant, did my entrance exams to get into my PGCE, did my teacher training, did my NQT year, and then a little bit of my RQT year. And then with COVID thrown into the mix, it was just a complete nightmare. But anyway, I still wanted to come back to Japan, so I applied for a job. It's in an international school in Tokyo. Managed to get it, luckily. But with COVID, it just created a whole minefield of problems in terms of like coming over and getting visas approved. With the R rate going up and down in both Japan and England, it just created a complete nightmare about how I was going to get over and when. When I got the green light in January, I packed up my things, I was ready to go. I said sayonara to my last school. The second lockdown hit. So from there I was just without a paddle. I was doing supply work, did some lateral flow testing for high schoolers and just trying to just see what was going to happen and whether I was actually going to make it to Japan or not. And then funnily enough, everything was fine. I got my final call from the embassy in London to say my visa had been accepted and I could come and get it. From there I was able to forward with coming to Japan. First thing I had to do was I had to get a negative COVID test. This is obviously very important because COVID, as you know, is running rampant all over the world, especially in Japan. And the variants are of a major concern to Japan right now, especially because the one that they're suffering with is actually an English variant. Understand the need for taking it very seriously and the need for being careful. So anyway, I got my negative test, I was ready to go. So I packed my bags, I brought 2 big suitcases, filled them with stuff, teaching resources, obviously clothes, all the things you would need for travel, toiletries, books for lockdown, a Nintendo Switch for lockdown of course. I bought Who Wants to Be a Millionaire as well. It is actually a really good game and it's kind of hard as well. As per my last video, I explained that I wanted to make this channel predominantly about cycling in Japan. I'm a massive cyclist in the UK, really got into the sport and I found it really fun, inclusive, rewarding, all those sorts of good attributes that a hobby could have. Unfortunately, with the moving around, found it very hard to bring my bike because I'm staying in total maybe about 3 or 4 places during my initial time here in Japan. Having a big suitcase like this for a bike along with my other regular suitcases is just not practical. So I was thinking, like, what else could I make this channel about? Once I'm able to bring my bike or buy a bike over here, I want to get back on the cycling thing. In the meantime, I was hoping I could like maybe tell you and inform you a bit about quarantine and what it's like at the moment. So leaving the UK, I flew from Manchester to London, Heathrow, and then Heathrow to Tokyo. Tokyo. And from what I can tell you, I'm sure anyone else that's been to airports right now is that they're very, very different places. And by that I mean no, you know, big groups of tourists leaving, because right now Japan is under an amber warning list, so which means it's only for essential travel. With the working visa, I was okay to travel with that. The airport situation is that it's quite quiet. The departure lounges are kind of eerie in a way, because a lot of the places have social distancing going on. A lot of chairs that you can and can't use, and it's just generally less busy. So I was on my flight, I was ready to go. I was really pleased actually that the flight itself was very, very quiet, not that many people at all. It separated us all with as much space in between as possible. So I ended up having a whole row to myself, which if anyone's ever had that luxury before, I can tell you it is just the best thing in the world, especially if you're flying long distance like that, like 22 hours, it really makes a big difference. Not very good with flying, so it was a welcome comfort to be able to stretch out and sleep, which is exactly what I did. I was able to just eat, watch something, and then slept for the duration. The only kind of difficulty and the thing that I found most uncomfortable was, of course, wearing the mask the whole time. So it's compulsory that you wear the mask during the duration of your flight, and of course in the airport. The only time you're allowed to take it off is, of course, when you're eating or drinking. There were times when I would just kind of like really sneakily sort of like take a breath and then put it back on. The air stewardesses spotted me straight away and gave me a nice little look. So we put it back on straight away. They weren't playing with that. I understand why, it is pretty serious. When I landed, that's when the fun began. Haneda Airport doesn't have that many flights coming in and out at all. So that means that a lot of the departure lounges are empty. You use them as makeshift checkpoints and testing stations for people like me coming in. First thing that happened was immediately when I disembarked, I was given like a green tag. This signified obviously that I had just come in. It was like fresh meat to the grinder that was the whole quarantine airport experience. It was going to be quite an operation. So we go to points in the airport, and you start at one, walk to the other. Really, in the total of it, I covered the whole of the airport, I think, and it was quite exhausting. This is what the checkpoint looks like. You just go up to it and you give them the paperwork that they want and they process it. And what I can tell you is paperwork. So much paperwork, numbers, barcodes, guidance letters, other guidance letters. What you need to do is have a folder with you like this on hand. Then when you get to each checkpoint, you can just dip in, take out what they need, try to put everything back, and don't lose your passport or your boarding pass, which I think probably very easy to do with the constant dipping in and out from this folder. At each checkpoint they have a picture of the certain bit of paperwork that they require, because not every checkpoint needs the same thing. I did a spit test, and from there I had to wait quite a few hours to get the results before I could move on. In the UK, as I'm sure some of you know, we've got quite good testing. The PCR test is quite quick. You just do the throat swab and the nose, put it in some solution, put that on the drop thing, then you're able to get like your results in pretty much like 10 minutes. Unfortunately, from what I've seen, Japan doesn't really have that, so the results take quite a long time. This involved waiting around for quite a while. In the meantime, I did spot the Star Wars plane, which was pretty cool. From there, I was able to travel on a coach with others to the first port of call, which was the first hotel. We took a coach from the airport about 30 minutes to a part of Tokyo, which I'm not sure exactly where it was. It was a long drive, and we arrived at the hotel. At the hotel, again, more paperwork, more formalities, more things to sign, more things to read. I was then given a bag with a bento box. A bento box is like a lunch box with like traditional Japanese food, rice, bit of fish. I was given one of those, help with my bags and my luggage, and just like put in my room. That was it. That was the whole thing. It really, really helps to have a bit of Japanese. My Japanese isn't really that good. It's kind of basic, conversational. I can order things. By no means it's fluent at all. But even having that was just such a utility, because a lot of the workers seemed to be like contract workers, maybe didn't speak that much English. Being able to just help out in that way, it just made the whole thing so much easier. Manners are a huge thing in Japan. Just being polite and nice and cooperative will definitely get you far. But there was a guy next to me who was like huffing and puffing, just being really uncooperative and not very nice. Of course, it was a tiring situation. It was a whole day of airport and the paperwork, and then getting to the hotel, there was more of it. Every single point there seemed to be passport checks. Again, all I can say is just go along with it, smile, be nice, be polite, and it'll be absolutely fine. My first 3 days at the hotel, the first hotel, it was paid for by the Japanese government. The first room that I had was very, very small. It was more or less about the same size as my home bedroom. It's about big enough for a double bed. That's about it. It was very, very pokey, not a lot of space at all. It had a washroom with a toilet and a shower, and you could take a bath in there, but not a lot of room to stretch your legs, do a bit of exercise. It just wasn't happening at all. Every now and then you would get an announcement. I think it was like 8 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and about 6 p.m. announcing that we were going to have our lunch. So your lunch is dropped off in a plastic bag and looks a bit like this. It was pretty much this every day, whether it was breakfast, lunch or dinner. It was some sort of bento set, and that's it. With me personally, I don't mind Japanese food. I've got really, really into it over the years. There are some things that I just can't eat. Pumpkin, radishes. If anyone's familiar with like things like osechi and stuff like that, I just can't really do it. The main thing that I was eating was rice. I was just pretty much on a rice diet, and in a room that I wasn't able to leave at all. It was a bit of a testing experience. I think really, like, if there was a requirement for me to stay there for the duration, the whole 2 weeks, I genuinely don't know how I would have done it, because I was starting to go a little bit crazy. I think it's compounded by the fact that the jet lag situation has been really, really hard. I'm now on this is like my 7th day in quarantine in total, and I've only just now managed to acclimatise. Not being able to like leave my room and be out and do things and go places and just acclimatise that way, it made such a negative impact. So there were a lot of sleepless nights where I was just waiting for the morning and waiting for breakfast. So, you know, obviously it's good to read and to kind of just occupy your mind and stay positive. That is just something to bear in mind, that the quarantine process can be a big challenge in terms of your adjusting and sleeping and things like that, and jet lag. Just before I wrap up this first part, this is going to have to be a 2-part video. It's way, way too big. Along with the prerequisite of the paperwork and the pledge that you need to sign that says that you will abide by the rules and you will take quarantine seriously and you will stay in and all those sorts of things, you have to download a series of apps. They're like test and trace apps, similar to what we have in the UK, and yeah, obviously they're there to like make sure that I'm abiding by the rules and not going out and partying and getting on public transport and things like that. At any moment I get a notification from this one, and you have to click this I'm here button just to confirm your location. So it's best to obviously just do that straight away the minute you get it. Just while we were talking, I got an email from the Ministry of Health. It's just a bit of a questionnaire about my general condition. So you just go along and then click that link, and then you get taken to a page where it says, have you got a high temperature? Do you feel sick? Da da da. And obviously if you're okay, just put no and then submit your answer. With these apps and things like that, it's just better to just do it as soon as you get these notifications. Don't leave it, don't forget about it, because I don't know what sort of trouble you might get in. That could be a big problem. I'll leave it there for now. So yeah, stay tuned for my second video, and I'll go into a bit more about where I am now. Well, thanks so much for sticking around and listening to me rant about the situation thus far. Really appreciate it. So yeah, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.